Welcome to the Apex Lifestyles podcast. I'm your host, Bob G. DMD, and I'm here, as always, with my co-host,
Dennis V. How's it going today, Bob?
It's going great. We have an awesome show for you. We just came off of a really great one, and we have another really great one. We're going on that same, musical path that we've been on, and we're going to change gears a little bit from hip-hop to jazz, rock, and jazz fusion, and all sorts of cool stuff. We have an amazing guest here. I've actually known him for probably close to 30 years, and professional musician, sideman, professor, and, all-around killer player, Boston's very own Scott Tarulli.
How's it going, guys?
Scott, great to have you, man.
Oh, I've been waiting for this. This is going to be a blast.
Yeah, you've been waiting to be on the Apex Lifestyles
I
podcast,
have.
right? Yeah,
That's true.
We're excited to have you.
Right on, man. Right on. So, anyhow, welcome. Thanks for coming in. You know about our podcast. You know what we're all about, living a life at the Apex. And, that's something that you've done, and you've been able to kind of build your career around music, being a professional musician. And then what's interesting is you've helped a lot of people along the way learn how to do what it is that you do to try to make a living out of that. And that's some of the things that I think we'd like to talk about today.
Awesome.
Right?
Bring it.
So why don't we talk a little bit about how you started in the music industry and music biz as, you're this young kid, right? How did you pick up, and your instrument is guitar.
Yes.
Right? You're a guitar player. And how did you, and I know your story, but I'll let you tell the audience, what was that first part in your life as a young guy that you said, I want to be a professional musician, or I want to actually learn how to play an instrument? How about that?
The earliest memory I had, there's two guitarists that struck me. One was Buck Dharma from Blue Oyster Cult. They had a live album out, and there's this track called Veteran of the Psychic Wars, where in the middle, there's this long guitar solo, but it was very haunting. It's very ominous sounding. And I remember not being so sure it was a guitar at first. So I kept putting the needle back.
Is it E minor?
I don't remember what key it's in.
Right, because that's like the ominous key, right? I feel like E minor is the ominous key for all of those.
I think that one's in G minor.
G minor, okay, all right. Well, you knew it had to be a minor, right?
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
And then the other one, oddly enough, this is the era where REO had that big album, High Infidelity.
Yeah.
And we used to go rent movies, and I saw this cover of a VHS tape. It's just, these guys at the edge of the stage, and one guy's holding this Les Paul, and I thought it was the coolest looking thing. So Mom, I want to rent that, and we ended up renting it 4, 5, 6 times before. I had to do a million chores to buy it.
Yeah.
And Gary Richrath, he just looked so cool, was playing this cool guitar, and between Buck Dharma and Gary Richrath, I was thinking, man, and of course, I said I wanted to get lessons, and okay, we'll start you on an acoustic, but it was in my mind. And then, of course, Def Leppard coming out with Pyromania, and all these albums. The guitar kind of hit me, like, kind of vibrated, hit my, me right here, like kind of rattled my soul in a good way.
Yeah.
And and then I had these huge dreams about being in a huge band or doing that. I would used to play these records and picture it was me on stage. I'm like 12 years old.
Yeah, I shared that same memory for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's like I used to once in a while I used to fake being sick because both my parents worked. So I'd like crank an album, get a tennis racket, and like jump around my room and sorry, Mom.
for me, it was Kiss Alive too.
Oh, of course.
And
all the rants.
Yeah, right. Of course.
Of course. That's amazing.
Right. So, all right. So you're 14 years old. How old were you when you got your first guitar?
Actually, I was 12. It was
12,
within a year.
Okay. So 12 years old, you get your first guitar. You start taking lessons, right?
Yes.
And when did you know that you had an acumen for it, right? Because for me, I've spoken with Dennis a lot about this, actually. For me, I got a guitar at what was it, like 8 years old?
Wow.
And it was a classical guitar, nylon strings, all of that. And my parents, that was my grandmother gave that to me for Christmas. And then my parents gave me lessons. But like an 8-year-old doing lessons, it was like a chore more than it was anything. And then they said, well, you're not practicing, we're not going to do it. So that like scared me into to doing it. And I negotiated a half hour every day of practice.
Exactly, me too.
Yeah, and that way they kept paying for the lessons. When did it become like no longer a chore? Because those first few like months of plunking away from me were arduous. Not only like my fingers hurting from pushing on those nylon strings that felt huge like cables to me. But when did it become not a chore anymore? And it was like, and you started to get some headway and learn some songs.
I say it's still a chore. I mean, lately I've been practicing 6 to 8 hours a day, like the past couple months, and I just can't not, But, I mean, I think we all know if we compare it to exercise, none of us want to get up early and go on the treadmill or, at least when I was working out. And sometimes it's that way, like, I don't want to pick up my guitar. I don't want to work on this. I don't want to. But I had a cool guitar teacher. His name is Arthur Olens, and he was my guitar teacher pretty much from 12 years old to graduation of high school.
Wow. So you built a really strong relationship with him.
And he was cool because he was funny. I looked up to him because he was really funny and really cool. And he used to have this thing where if I actually came in and like did the Mel Bay pages, you remember?
Yeah,
the Mel Bay
I
books.
do. Yeah, for sure.
He would show me something cool. Like he showed me like just what I needed, like by the cars. And then he showed me Don't Fear the Reaper, how to play that. Yeah. And of course I would go home and spend most of the time on that.
Of course.
But he was good at balancing me, helping me learn scales and kind of the basic stuff. But by the time I was 14, I had an electric guitar. I was learning stuff off records, like
So that came early for you then.
Yeah, and it's funny because I would come home from school and go to the basement, and I would like a lot of these albums back then, like Iron Maiden's Live After Death. If you shut off the left speaker, you're shutting off one of the guitarists.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
I never thought about that.
So I would turn off Adrian Smith.
Yeah.
And I would play the whole album, like the harmonies of his solos. And, my mom used to come down and say, it's time for dinner. I got so stuck in that I'd come up at 10 at night and my food would be there on the table cold. And the kitchen's clean, they're asleep.
Yeah.
So I really got the bug pretty
early,
really early, like where I was, that's all I thought about. When I was in school, I wanted to be home with my guitar.
Yeah. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you play lefty.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so how was that as a kid trying to find a lefty guitar, or did you learn righty and then flip later?
Well, that's a great topic because people get on me all the time about it. They always go, well, I'm a lefty too, but I play right-handed. But there's some of us that are truly left-handed, so they said the same thing. I held the guitar left-handed. You're going to play right-handed. And, I mean, right now, if you gave me a guitar and I tried to hold it right-handed, it would, probably fall. I have no coordination this way.
Yeah,
So, and after, the third lesson, they told my mom that, he doesn't really have it. He's not progressing at all. He's not. And I actually kind of threw a fit. And they're like, okay, we'll switch the strings around.
Okay.
But it's a bad idea. You should learn how to play right-handed.
Yeah.
And then I immediately got better each week.
Yeah. And it's easier on an acoustic guitar than electric, kind of to set that up. You'll have the reverse headstock otherwise, right?
Yeah. you mean swap it?
Swap it out, yeah.
Yeah, and I got really excited because that was almost the end of. It's like the movie Sliding Doors. If my mom took me off that, what would I be doing now? Because I've already been rejected from the music side.
Right.
So, but yeah, there was always lefty guitars around. Like I had some Peavies when I was young. Like I used to buy the Peavey guitars from Corb.
We all did, right?
Yeah.
They were accessible to us at that time, right?
We all went. We all had the amps, Peavey
all
amps.
Of it, yeah. Absolutely.
So from an early age, you really had that passion.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, like I was constantly fantasizing about being a rock star. and playing all the time, because actually when I would play to, I used to play to Tribute, the Ozzy record with Randy Rhoads.
Yep.
And I used to play to it as best I can, but picture that I was Randy Rhoads, because I'm actually kind of playing to the album. So there was a lot of kind of mental thinking. There was a lot of imaging. There's a lot of, when you're young, hopes and dreams are like big, and you've got a lot of time ahead of you. So it's a great age to catch the bug, because anything can happen. I mean, it's early in the day when you're even 18 years old. It's just so much more can happen the next day. And, you're not old enough to have lived life and understand that 18's not old. To you, 18 is old.
Right.
And you jumped in the guitar scene where rock and roll was really surging in the 80s like that with, Ozzy, Def Leppard. I mean, who were some other groups that you followed that you really tried to emulate some of the guitarists?
Oh, my gosh. Well, that the Whitesnake album came out in '87, which was, I loved that. I love that album still. Let's see, Dio.
I was just going to say Dio.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, Vivian Campbell, huge fan.
Well, he was on both bands, right?
What do you mean?
He was.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He was in Dio and in Whitesnake.
He was on Whitesnake on the '87 album.
Right,
tour.
right, yeah.
I always liked his playing because he took his time, and he wasn't afraid to hang on a note for a while, and that was really kind of emotional. It like set something off with me, and now that I'm older, I'm thinking, wow, that must have taken guts at the time, because it was just kind of like you want to shred and be accepted by the guitar community. And he did have chops, but he played the right stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So
he let the song tell him what needed to be played.
yeah. Oh my God, yeah. And it's still all those solos. Like his solos are something that you would, if you covered the tune, the solo's part of the song.
Yeah.
They're not all like that, but you wait for those parts, like Last in Line. I want to hear that solo,
Yeah, for sure.
But, yeah. So it was mostly like heavy rock at the time, which I still love so much. And, that's where I spent all my time, is learning stuff off of records. And this is like, well, you might remember this, Bob, like to slow it down back in the day. We didn't have half-speed machines. I used to stack quarters on the record.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you would tape it, and then it would be a minor third down, but slower, so you could, pick out the lines that way. We had to get really creative back then.
We did. Now you can just do it digitally and slow it down. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, totally interesting.
In college, I was scared. I went to UMass Dartmouth. I'm thinking, I can't wait. I can't make a living as a musician, right? And, my parents were like, do what you want, but have something to fall back on. So I studied writing communications as half of my major. Musical composition is the other. And just out of school, I said yes to one gig. That's all I did. There was no business card involved. There was no press kit. And those started to get to like R&B tours, where I didn't really have any background in groove. I basically learned that stuff on the road. There's great stories. I should write a book. Look, I got the audition, and I'm somewhere. And that's back when you can smoke at clubs. Some dingy club, and it's all smoke everywhere. I'm back with the band grooving. There's 3 front singers. And then the second song, one of the singers turned around and said, "Sit down."
Oh, boy.
And I was terrified, so I had to adapt to this time field. It's different than rock. The rock eighth note is different than the R&B, soul, funk. And I learned that on the gig mostly. And, I started to learn the parts exactly from all these records, like note for note. And I would practice to them until I started to feel time that way. So, and then...
I remember seeing something about you playing a big stadium with a country artist.
Oh, yeah, a few months ago. I was, opening for a country artist.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It was at the Amalie Arena in Tampa.
Yeah.
And it was Brad Pasley.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I got a call. It's this great, I ended up doing the gig, but it was just the singer on acoustic guitar, and I was asked to go down and accompany with some guitar textures, like some tremolo parts and some
Yeah.
really tasty things in between. And that's something I can do on the spot. And we had one quick rehearsal. I had to depend on my ears. You know, like there's a set of tools that could keep you, you know, working. And
Amazing. But let's continue on. Like, you spent some time in Italy. I think back in 2018, it was a pretty special thing. You played with some pretty big names out there, right?
yeah, it's the Pescara Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
And
And there's one name in particular that you dropped earlier that's just super impressive. You know?
well, the big headliners were Bill Frisell, Brad Meldau, and Pat Metheny.
Yeah.
And I basically did one performance. It's like for a week or week and a half. I did a performance, and then I did 4 days of master classes where I taught at the. I did master classes at the conservatory there.
Yeah.
And it's cool because my family's from Pescara, and I met people I've never met before, and I don't speak Italian, and they didn't speak English, so it was like we talked by them overfeeding me.
That's
As
great.
Italians do.
Yeah, that's cool.
Universal language.
Right?
It's universal language.
So you were teaching at the conservatory over there. We'll touch a little bit about like your day job, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So your day job is you teach at the prestigious Berklee College of Music, and you help form young musicians' minds. And out of that, you've started something that you probably didn't think about doing, and that's you kind of doing some mentorship. Do you want to talk about a little bit about what you do at Berkeley, but mostly about that mentorship stuff?
Yeah, I'll just say that I've been there about 23 years. And I used to play these gigs around town, sometimes with Berkeley professors, and they used to say, "Oh, you should come teach at Berkeley." And I'm like, I can't even walk past that place. Like, I'd never gone there. And I was too intimidated. And finally, somebody set up an interview for me, which I didn't know. I went and interviewed. The department chair came out to hear me live shows, and I ended up getting the job there. Now, mind you, I'm not teacher certified. You know, there's this big thing about going to music school ruins your creativity and da-da-da-da. And, well, first to that, I say, no, if you're a creative person, you'll do amazing things with 2 things or a million things. If you're creative, you're going to be creative. It doesn't matter what's in the toolbox. So if you know a very little and do beautiful stuff with it, like I love The Edge, and people say,
of course,
he can't play guitar. Are you kidding me? That guy's a pioneer, you know? And, so I was, like the day before, I said to the chair, like, what am I supposed to teach? Like, what's the Berkeley curriculum? He's like, no, you're here to teach what you do. What? And I didn't have that notion. I thought, like, I'd have to learn the Berkeley way.
Yeah.
But, so, teaching started to kind of wear on me a bit. And, for so long. And then probably around COVID, I had students, I had to do the online thing like Zoom.
Yeah.
And a few students I ended up working like, one was in a class and one was a one-on-one student. And the class I was teaching was a performance major class for 5th semester performance majors. Now, that's violinists, vocalists, drummers, and they would perform and I would give feedback, their peers would give feedback. And I think you're right, it didn't dawn on me, but one in particular, I hope she doesn't mind me talking about her, Mia Asano, and she was in the class, and I think she asked me, is it okay if I like use my electric violin for one of the performances or something to that effect? I said, yeah, of course. Why not? I want to see that, right? And she kind of said, well, it's kind of tough because, you have the tradition. And if you step out of the tradition, you're going to get haters and all that stuff. And she was a little worried about that. So, and then I started to kind of like email her and say, hey, like, what do you have in mind that you want to do? And she's like, I actually want to play pop tunes, and like, she has these really cool outfits. Like, she's just very cool. And I said, why don't you just do a video and put it up on Instagram? I mean, why not? And, at least you're out there showing it. Like, she's performing. She's a great musician, but she's not performing that stuff at the time. And, her doing her thing on her terms ended up working. So what I like about the story of her is she wasn't trying to pander to an audience, right?
And you helped coax her with and help shape her mindset in a way that she felt that was a safe thing to do, and you helped coach her through that. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, she did it. In the end, I kept telling her, I said, it's you. Like, I talked you through some of the stuff, but you, like, I remember one of her first ones was she did this cover of Dance Monkey, right? And she did these different things, and it was wild. She was like seeing this stuff. She was a natural, and she's one of the only people I know personally that has taken off from one of those platforms. And she's on tour now. She played with Lindsey Sterling. She's toured with some metal band in Europe, and and I think her having the courage to be who she wanted to be, like, that's a great story with her alone. And then at the same time, I had a student one-on-one, and her name is Bella Perron, and very cool. I mean, she had her act together. I mean, she practiced. I mean, she was...
I've seen her live.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah, so she's, she came in great. Like, I would assign stuff, and I would push her a little bit, But then she started asking my advice outside of things, like, hey, like, this is a musical question, but not to do with music theory or whatever. And I found out, like, I was kind of getting involved to help her out because, like, people take advantage of young people in the business or whatever. And then I just kind of gave my opinion about stuff, but I found I was enjoying this a lot more than can you play this scale for this degree. And by her own talents, she got into this band Plush. And, she's done amazing things. I mean, a tour opening for Alice in Chains, a tour opening for Slash, a tour opening for Disturbed, Alice in Chains. So, like, but...
yeah, that Plush album is a killer album.
It's a great record.
Yeah.
And so I'm, I keep telling her, I said, like, this isn't my doing. It's like...
But you help enable the mindset, so give yourself a little credit for that. Like, you definitely help enable some of that mindset, and shaping young people is, like, the most rewarding thing you can do. I mean, you have all these years of experience running through, and we can get into, a little bit about, how hard it is to make a living as a pro musician only, and the ebbs and flows of that, and we could have this big debate over Napster streaming and such, and I always blame Napster. I always say it's Napster, but that's how long ago now?
20 years.
I should probably get over it a little bit since I don't make my living at it. But did you want to explore some of that a little bit and talk about how it's been? You've released a bunch of work.
Yes.
Right, and you've chosen not to use streaming platforms.
Correct. I'm not on any streaming.
Yeah. So you want to, like, tell the audience why that is for you, and, like, why do you find that is an important part of who you are? And I think it's important to hear this side of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting because you won't hear a lot of musicians talk about this, but if you follow along, I call it Silicon Valley rhetoric, or they'll say things like, now's never been a better time to be an artist. And, you've got a phone, that means you've got a movie camera, you got a computer, you got a studio. And...
or if you have a dental office, you have a podcast studio, too. That's also another thing.
They said that, too.
They did say that, right? I bought into it. Sorry, man.
So, until the common words were, this is the way it is now. And they started using the word old model to mean anything that's not
streaming platform.
Now, to make an album now, because, a lot of the indie record deals are gone, record labels, rather. In the past, a record label might front you a chunk of money, they pay for your album, and then they pay for you to go on the road opening for a bigger band where you had the opportunity to blow the crowd away the first 45 minutes. And then, of course, they want to recoup on their investment. So, you sell records, they're taking, if I invested in something in you, I would want some return. It's just basic business. And, but nowadays, it's the artist that's putting the money in. So really to do an album, like a real good one, about $15,000. And people might say that's outrageous. But if we think of it this way, first there was fast food, right? And then fast fashion, meaning really cheaply made disposable clothes by underpaid people in other nations. And now we have fast art, which means it's made it's made not with a lot of care and consumed hastily.
And mass produced in a lot of ways. And I don't think a lot of people understand this part of it. There's a handful of writers out there that are writing a lot of the music, and then we're putting people who look great up to deliver the performance, And at the end of the day, I think a lot of these record labels and platforms understand that there's a formula to music now, that they know that a certain amount of it will sell, right? So they keep kind of reproducing the same thing and rehashing the same kind of thing and blending it up. And I feel like some of the music has lost a lot of its flavor because of that.
Well, that's where I kind of say that technology, well, no, not technology. I just want to, I call it Silicon Valley. People, I should say that what they've done has impacted the culture. So we used to have journalists. Now part-time amateurs are hired, right? So we're not getting, if you read an article online, it's nothing professional. And so so culturally, we're kind of suffering from it. Like I was saying before, the music's made without great care for a lot of these people, and it's consumed hastily, right? So for my thing is, if I put $15,000 in an album out of my pocket, right? Why am I going to put it on streaming? Because I know it has value, and then I found the other stuff out that not only you put it on streaming for free, but you start paying other companies to put you in.
Yeah, third parties.
Third parties, that's what I mean, yeah. They put you in a rotation. We can get you noticed more. So now the artist is the consumer. All the money comes from the artist. Everybody makes the money except for the artist, right? So these people that aren't musicians that can promote your music on Spotify, well, you got to pay people to give it away for free now. And I hear from a lot of people, well, how do people hear your music? And I say, well, Spotify's only existed for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Since the 1800s, people have heard music. For centuries, people have heard music. Up to 10 years ago, people have heard music. How? Because you're out at the clubs performing in the material world. And this whole thing about, well, do that and then you make up the money selling merch on the road.
Yeah, until you have to cut it with the house too, right?
Well, not only that, but...
Because the house, these clubs, they take a significant chunk of your merch sometimes too.
Well, even if they don't, you invest in the T-shirts.
Yep.
So you're out money there. You invest in all this stuff. The cost of gas, the cost of... Look, the prices have gone up.
Yep.
In the last 10 years, and musicians' worth has gone down, right? So, I always say, at the end of the year, everybody says, yeah, thanks for all these streams, and it's like a badge of honor. And I don't understand that, because it's kind of like you didn't sell anything, But also, I see this big amount of complaining. I'm sure you did. These billionaires stealing our stuff. These are services that you choose to use.
Choose to use it, yeah.
Yeah. If your music's on there, you put it there, that means you're okay with the deal, right? So if you're not okay with the deal, why is it up there? And since it's a service, they don't really owe you anything, and that's the way it's been. I mean, I don't know what laws could be made, because we're talking about royalties and all that and how it should be done. But there's not really a solution to it. I sell all my stuff on my website. And, I have a lot of live clips of me, live shows of me on YouTube. So I'm not like absent from the internet. I don't think it's all bad. But certainly it's a bad deal. And I've never suffered I've never been denied a gig because I don't have streaming. I've never been just nothing. And now people are finding out, well, people could scam it. Like, what was that metal band years ago that they just generated like so many views and they booked a whole European tour off of it, and the clubs lost their shirt because they weren't real streams.
Real.
Right.
That's a concern. As you're talking about, I think back when we grew up in the 80s, and we just had Parrish from EPMD here, when they got their first record go gold, 500,000 people had to physically go in a store, purchase the album. Today we're hitting buttons to be certified gold, platinum, diamond. How is that formula even put together? Do you think it's easier for the artists today to reach some of those milestones than the artists in the past?
Honestly, I think it's an incentive to use these platforms more. And the more we use the platforms, the richer they get. So we can't have it both ways. We can't sit here and complain about it. And then I ask, why is your stuff on there then? Well, look, when you ask Spotify, they've got like 3 or 4 people that have made it big. I mean, we're talking 0.5%, but they use those same examples all the time. Look, this could be you. And to give it away and to pay to give it away further and to talk about streams and likes. I mean, you could be in the material world. There's clubs still do exist. A scene still does exist. The way we made connections still exists. But before internet, we met everybody in clubs. We saw bands in clubs. Yep. And that exists still. That's not the old model. So when they say streaming is the model, it's not the model, it's a model. It's a way to do it. And I don't mind if people are on it, but it is weird if they're on it and then they're complaining about it. It's like, oh, great, I made $3. These billionaires are, well.
Yeah, we have friends that have had a couple 100,000 streams, and they basically get $15 or so. Yep. It's literally that. So, but yeah, I totally appreciate all of that. I can totally appreciate it as trying to make it in an industry that only the really top big artists are be able to do what once was able to do on analog type media. So
you have this idea of how the business is supposed to work, and then you're faced with the grim reality of you have control over nothing. And I mean that. People say it's who you know. I know a lot of big names.
You know a lot. I mean, I've seen pictures with you with living Beatles.
Yes.
And it, really amazing guitar player, is in the same picture. Do you know the picture I'm talking about?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, who is the other guy you were standing
Lukather.
with? Yeah, Steve Lukather, yeah.
And I've played
like he literally is hanging out with Ringo Starr and Steve Lukather.
Yeah.
So he knows plenty of people.
Like I did work with Steve Gadd and Tony Levin, Jerry Marotta, and the list goes on. And I know these people. So who that's out the window. Because I know people that are not active in music that get picked up. They're not even active. They're not doing anything. And so one of the obstacles was seeing, all right, I'm going to dress nice. I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to be a professional. And then you see flaky people that don't show up, never have their act together, but get big gig after big gig. So in order to back up and not have me angry about it, you have control over nothing in life.
The fact of the matter is you've done something that I was not able to do, right? And now I live vicariously through people like you, right? And people who gave me the guitar up there, things like that.
Right.
So the fact of the matter is I think, sometimes you have to step back a little bit and say, hey, you know what? I was able to do it. You've made a living doing music.
Right.
right? Without having to go and necessarily bust tables.
Yes.
So that's a success to me.
100%.
You know, and I think you've been able to influence so many people along the path through your teaching and mentorship, and even people who just watch you, you know, from the sidelines and say, man, that guy's doing it. Like, so you give people reason to still believe in things like that. And I think that's really awesome.
It's interesting that, like, I'm hearing you say that, but being the person here, I don't see that. Like, I don't, you know, like, people may talk about it, right?
Yeah, that's the imposter syndrome, though, coming through, man. That's exactly what that is.
I mean,
you know?
yeah, but, like, my dreams never really changed. Like,
Yeah,
I would love, like, Don Henley or Cheryl Crow to call up and go, summer tour? And I've had so many close tours that, like, I was ready to get on a plane and go rehearse. And then,
Yeah.
and so it's like, oh, my God, what now, you know? So, yeah, I guess it's kind of like something did happen. It's not what I planned yet, but I'm still young.
You're still, and you look great. You look the part. You know, you carry yourself like a rock star when you walk through here. You know,
100%.
every time I hang out with you, I'm like, that's a rock star right there. Yeah. So anyway, that's really cool. One of the last things I kind of want to talk about, we touched on it earlier. You have something to celebrate, man. Something big.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you want to talk about it, but you were telling us that you got a 10-month coin.
I do. I do have a 7th coin.
Congratulations, man! And
That's
like, that is a huge undertaking. I don't know how much you want to get into doing that, but that's and how your life is now versus what it was like before. Like, I think people need to hear that message, and I think anyone on their way to an apex has to make sure that. And I say this all the time: you got to get your body right, and the mind will follow. Right, and for me, it was doing my journey, and then I reeled Dennis in to do a journey too. Right, and my journey happened to not necessarily be through substances; it was through food. You know, and I would use poor coping mechanisms to kind of, you know, make sure that I felt good. Right, and why don't you go ahead and tell us about your 10-month sobriety coin and how you got there?
It's an interesting story because my 20s and 30s playing clubs, I never even had a drink. Like, if you ask anybody that toured with me, I didn't even have a beer. It never crossed my mind. You know, like, a lot of the band would spend their whole night's earnings and some, like the Blues Brothers. You actually owe us $200.
Yeah. I know a guy who's no longer with us who used to do that.
Yeah. And
and I mean, he actually shared a stage and was an opener for Kiss. You know, man. You know, that was a really huge thing. But they would end up with a bar tab at the end of it. You know,
yeah.
So
I know. So to me, one day later in life, I mean, pretty recently, a few years ago, I would just come home and like, I'm gonna have a scotch. And slowly but surely, I didn't stop at 1. I didn't stop at 2. And then for months and months and months, I would start drinking at 9 in the morning. And then by 1, be passed out or out of my mind. And I'm lucky to be alive. Let's just put it that way. Looking back,
you know, I'm just gonna interrupt you for a second. One of our close friends actually was feverishly texting me, worried about you.
Oh wow!
Yeah, you know that. Like,
yeah.
So we were, you know, you know, we'll keep him nameless right
yes.
now. But
I know what you mean.
But yeah, he's feverishly worried about you, man. So like, people they care and they love you. You
well,
know?
see, that was one of the positive things, but I started to realize like things. I go to the train station, right? But I'd leave a little bit early because there was this like burger place that did like egg sandwiches, and it's like for every sandwich you get $1 beer, and then I would basically shotgun 2 beers and get on the train, and that's where the day started. And yeah, there's a few instances that I don't know how I'm still alive, and I remember one day it was 1:00 in the afternoon, and I was completely drunk. And I graduated high school with this girl. And we're talking like over 30 years ago or 30 years ago. And I knew she had put out books on addiction. So I ended up, I didn't have her number, but I got on Instagram. And you know, I could call people through there.
Yeah. And
she picked up, and I just remember saying to her, I need help. And she was amazing. So there was no intervention. I just, she found me a place in Boston called Right Turn. And I did an outpatient program, what they call an IOP. And it was about 15 hours a week. And it was intensive, cognitive behavioral therapies, DBT. And this was about 2 years ago. I think I spent 9 months in that. And I'd feel better, but then I kept having relapses. Like after 3 months, out of nowhere, and when I start now, I can't stop. If I take one drink, there'll be no stopping.
Yeah, the off switch is broken.
The off switch is broken. And that's why I'm like, well, just because someone drinks a lot doesn't mean they're an alcoholic. If they could just choose to stop, I couldn't do it on my own. So I've been working for 2 years on being sober, and I've never made it like this. I got a sponsor. I'm with the program. I have a network. And I would, encourage...
You're going to meetings regularly?
Not so regularly. I do go sometimes, but I am with a counselor, a substance abuse counselor I see every week. I talk to my, what we call litter mates, the people that we went through IOP with, and, I'll get calls from them. Sometimes they're having a relapse or that they're drunk and had the relapse, and, we got each other's back. But I've never, since 2 years ago when I started this, I've never had 10 months, and I haven't had anybody that's an alcoholic knows you have the disease speaks to you. It negotiates with you. Come on, just one. Come on, this. Come on, you can handle it. And you have to start detaching yourself from that voice. And it was a lot of work. And I do think every day it's a miracle I'm alive. I should be dead. Just how drunk I got, the amount of cement stairs I fell down, vomiting in my sleep. It's like it's gory, but I would say for anybody, there is help out there, and I'm so glad that I decided to ask for help, because I knew something was wrong. Because some people that drink since they're 7, well, they might not know. And I had the luxury of I've dealt with hard feelings without alcohol because I didn't drink, But the disease is real, and anybody that needs help, you can get it. And there's people that are. One of the things of AA is service, right? Where you help other people, and so anybody that's part of the AA thing will help. So I think it's important. Any kind of substance, any kind of addiction that hinders your life. Now, when I was drinking a lot, I wasn't practicing much. I'd show up and play gigs. I played a few gigs too drunk to play. And now it's working on putting that behind me.
Yeah.
So...
Well, I can tell you, I've noticed a sharpening of your skill set over the past... when I watch you on social,
oh wow,
man, he's on fire this time, right? So I'm like, he is on. Not that you were ever off,
right?
But I could tell a huge difference just perceptually for me looking in. So what is it? What do you feel like is the biggest? There's so many lessons in that, and we could do a whole podcast just on that. And
sure.
We're kind of coming up against time. But what is the biggest takeaway that you've had after 10 months? Like you basically are completely detoxed, and now you neurons are rewiring, right? What's your biggest takeaway? And what's a message to someone who needs help, right? And what's the scariest part for those people who need help but haven't asked yet? And give them some hope, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at in a roundabout way.
Yeah, no, so what did I notice? When you're in the point where you're drinking constantly, you're not really aware. I know I started to negotiate with myself. I was like, do I have a problem? And then I would ask somebody else how much they were drinking. 2 bottles of wine at night. Okay, good. So I'm not an alcoholic, And there's some things like I've met a new network of people that care. Like if I call one of them up, they're going to pick up unless they're in the middle of something. And if I'm in crisis, if I'm up against a bottle, as we say, they'll help talk you down. I have a sponsor I can do that with, and we keep in touch. And then, interesting enough, in certain gigs I get high, anxiety, which is weird because I've been 99% of the gigs I do, I'm not anxious. But like I was premiering some of my new music at Berkeley, and I was terrified because nobody's ever heard me play this stuff. It's completely different than anything I did. I swear people were going to hate it. I swear it was too hard for me to play because the stuff I wrote was difficult. And I remember being at the side of the stage going, this would all go away if I just had 2 shots. And I said, but that's not an option. So I'm going to go through this and see what happens. And I started to learn that I was nervous, but I knew I was doing the right thing going through this. That's why I was talking about bad feelings aren't bad,
Yeah.
And so I did it, and it was fine. It was good. And I just kind of pulled myself together in another way. And I find myself in a lot of this stuff like, oh my God, I have to go to this with these people, and that's the joke, right? Oh, my in-laws, I'm going to buy alcohol. And anything to come up like this, I'm dealing with it on my own. But I'm getting tools from my therapist and everything. I've been in therapy my whole life. Yeah. So I think in your question about others, it doesn't hurt to just go to a meeting and hear people. They actually have an app for it. Like wherever you are, like if I'm in California, I can hit it. It'll tell you.
Right up.
What's that?
It pops right up.
It pops right up, and you could go in, and you could not say anything, and you can listen to people's stories and see if you identify with them. But if you want help, they're always there hanging out after. And I didn't know that, but maybe if somebody's questioning whether the disease has a hold of them, just go to a meeting, and you don't have to participate. You just listen. And, people in that room, when I go to meetings, they understand me on a level that nobody else understands me, because you don't know what it's like to be an alcoholic unless you are one, right? People don't understand. Just stop. Why are you drinking that way? Why are you being a jerk?
Yeah.
Why are you? And but you hear stories. You're like, oh my God, that happened to me. Yeah. Oh my God. But it's an awakening, but it's comforting because you got like 10 other people in the room or 20 other people in the room telling your story. And so the community, and I'm better at the obstacles, going back to that. Like, the stage fright, 2 shots would shut my brain off, but that's not an option. And I went out and I did it. And that's what you said earlier about showing up.
Yeah.
I showed up for myself. I didn't have the alcohol dampen it.
That's right.
And I showed up for myself.
You walk through that door.
I walked through that door.
And when you walk through that door, you notice that this community is one of the most supportive communities out there.
Unbelievable.
And you don't have to be alone. You have to make that first step. You have to make all those decisions, not to use, when you have the anxiety, the stress, the triggers, you have to do all that work. And when it gets difficult, you have those supports to lean on to get the advice, direction. And a lot of the support you're getting, they've been through it, and they can share their struggles and how they navigated, not telling you what to do,
right,
but help you explore your way to be successful.
I guess the last thing I want to say about it too is, I guess this is really the first time I've really gone public with it. I mean, I've put the chips in my story, and anybody that knows what the chip is, and if you don't know, they don't know what the picture's about. But since people around my group of people that, I have people coming up to me saying, my partners like an alcoholic, can you talk to them? No, I can't, because I can't. They can come to me, but you can't. I'm not going to go fix somebody. They're not ready.
They have to want it.
They have to want it.
Yep.
It's like anything else. So that's another thing. It's just, self-accountability on that. And it's humbling, but, it's the best decision I've made in a while.
For sure, man. And I'm really happy you did. And I know a friend of ours that we share is too. And, you got my number. You can call me anytime, even if you want to go and hit a rock show or something.
We're doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
We're doing that.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, what kind of, where can everyone find you?
ScottTarulli.com. I got a lot of stuff up there about my mentoring program, merchandise, press kits, all that stuff is there. There's tons of live stuff for me on YouTube, for better or for worse. I didn't post it all. Yeah. So there's probably
and this will all be on YouTube too shortly. So
yeah,
get ready.
But those are the two main places. Bands in town. If you want to know where I'm playing, sign up in Bands in Town. Follow me. Anytime I post a gig, you'll get notified, and you could buy tickets through the app and all that stuff. So yeah, there's plenty of places.
What about your IG and Facebook?
My Instagram is Scott_Tarulli. Just Scott. I think only Scott Tarulli on there.
Yeah.
There's two pictures up because I had a second one. It's not the cartoon character one. There's a cartoon of me, but then there's one of me playing guitar in a black and white picture. That's me. So feel free to say hello
and give him a follow for sure.
Absolutely.
And how about Facebook? You have a Facebook?
Yeah, I'm not on there much, but you can look at my name, Scott. Scott Tarulli Music is like I keep that updated with stuff, but I'm not on Facebook very often lately. It's not a healthy place for me.
Yeah. All right. And then last parting question, and I'm sure you usually ask this question. What do you? I'll let you ask it. Go ahead.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
I would do my best to delicately stop expectations. It's kind of a tough thing because I don't know if I could do anything different. I had to be young and, naive. I had to go through that. That's what life experience is about. So I don't know that I'd go do anything. I guess if I went back, I would probably just encourage the younger me. That's it. I would encourage, like, oh man, you could do this. Like, build up my self-doubt when I was younger. Like, I used to shy from things when I was 20, 21 because I'm not good enough. And to be honest, nobody early on gave me a break. I mean, I give the young generation breaks on gigs all the time. But when I was younger, nobody threw me a bone. So I guess I'd just be his cheerleader is it. I don't know if it would be advice. I would just, you are where you're supposed to be, but maybe don't hate yourself so much.
I love that. So, you know what, Dennis? I think this is a riveting interview.
Incredible.
Scott is one of the best players I've ever seen. So go out and I wish I could play half as well as he does,
Thank you.
And amazing guy, great story. And follow him and get out and see him play. I mean, you will not be disappointed. So
I hope to see people.
All right. Yeah. So it's an awesome show. Thanks for coming, Scott. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Scott, you're going to get ready to see me at some of the shows, but something I picked up along the way is you don't think you're anywhere near your apex, which I think is a great thing in a way because we're always looking to make improvements. But my personal opinion, you're a lot further along than you think you are. You're not only a musician, but I look at what you're doing with students and the way your teaching has evolved in 23 years. Somebody without a teaching degree, like you said early, you're making connections and helping students reach their dreams on a daily basis. Keep it up, keep going, and Bob, as we always say, it's go time.
I love it.